Wide out. Power. Wide out. Power. Shuffle. Pull and pull, pull and pull, pull and pull. A.
Well, good evening. Welcome to the Power Hour show. It is brought to you by courtesy of Perfect Balance Clinic. It's a show for runners. It's a show about running. And we do tend to bring on the show different experts to help us discuss the whole subject matter of running and about athletes. Running slightly late tonight, but I tell you what, we will catch up with ourselves because my guest is Malcolm Wallace. Welcome to the show, Malcolm.
Thank you. Looking forward to it tonight.
Indeed. You and I have a subject that is very close to your heart. What have you been up to anyway since the last time we were together on the show?
Really just catching up with one or two throwers I have and talking to some overseas people about what coaching they're looking forward in 21.
Listen, when we come back, you and I will get on top of the discussion for tonight because you are into disability sport. But what I'd like to hear when we come back from you is what is your paradigm take on it? For you, is it disability athletes or is it athletes with a disability? Let's hear what your thoughts are on that one, just to set the ground.
Athletes certainly has
it's athletes with a disability. They're all athletes, whether they're able-bodied or mainstream, or whether they're athletes with a disability.
Keep his sights and his eyes fixed.
Though, as long as you
not on the top of the hill, but just on the heels.
As long as you're sincere
about
what you're saying.
Yeah, he looks okay. I think he's comfortable. He's actually extended that gap slightly over the Portuguese team behind him. Belgium now moving through it and starting to challenge the Spanish team.
Yeah, McMurray's
Malcolm, what's your take yourself? What is it for you? Disability sport or athletes with a disability? Where are you coming from? How do you straddle those two positions?
I think the most important thing is really that you treat them with respect. We often get confused when we're talking. So as long as, I always say athletes with a disability. However, you sometimes forget and you say disabled athletes. As long as you're sincere in what you're saying and you are nice to the people you're coaching, there's never a problem. It's people who go over the top and make a big thing about it that they embarrass the athlete at times.
You have, talking to you, one can't help but feel the heart you have for disability sport. And you have shared with me, various situations you've been to, various countries and places, all manner of different athletes with a disability. jumpers, throwers, runners.
Yeah.
You have experienced a fair amount within that community. What's your view regarding coaches that would like also to contribute their expertise to an athlete with a disability, but they do somehow, maybe they are apprehensive, they don't know where to start or how to start, seeing that probably there are no, there are no formal situations, formal qualifications for this sort of thing, saying that disability comes in all manner of disabilities.
Yeah, one of the things you've got to understand, first of all, is different, right? For instance, you may have cerebral palsy, but they are different. You'll have some that have problems on the left-hand side. They may be confined to a wheelchair. They may be very, very brainy. And again, then you have some that have a learning disability.
Mm.
The important thing is sit and talk to the athlete, hear what he or she's got to say, and then think it through. For instance, if you're doing a standing thrower because they cannot do a turn or they can't do the glide, think of the situation where they are and where they are in the actual throwing area. For instance, they may be standing, so you're talking about the last movement. So their body turns, their arms are back, and they come round, and that's the part you look at. If it's long jump, you have to look at and say, right, have they the ability to use an ordinary marking or the option of a meter box? And they jump it from the meter box. So they haven't got to go up to the line. You've got to look at things like balance, understanding balance, not getting overcomplicated. And the most important thing about any disability coaching is you've got to experiment. Because as I said, everyone's different. I'm currently coaching at 40, which is the dwarf. And we have to look at where they start from, what positions they can get into. A lot of people talk about biomechanics out of the window with disability athletics. You have to look at the individual. I work with a lot of coaches from overseas. I get emails, I get Zoom meetings, and occasionally I will go overseas and meet people. And especially when I did the Grand Prix circuit, I would meet lots of coaches overseas. For instance, in the Dubai Grand Prix, I met a thrower who was visually impaired, blind. His coach didn't know how to coach him. He knew that how he could get him to get to the front of the circle, but he didn't know how to get the athlete to actually throw straight and come within the throws area. It got to the point as everybody was ducking and diving because he would turn and he would throw it and it could go anywhere. So I sat with the coach, we looked at it, we worked it out, and we are able to actually get the thrower to throw further and in a straight line. So that's the most important thing is actually looking at and trying to come up with some solutions.
Indeed. I like your position there, Malcolm. You point out that it's experimentation and exploration is a big thing for you, working with disability athletes. I think it's the same with any athlete, really. You have to explore because the differences that each athlete has got. But what I like to maybe draw your attention to is that the disability sport movement, if I might call it that, has come a long way ever since Stoke Mandeville, when it was set out for,
Yes.
almost a rehabilitation sort of agenda. And that has seemingly progressed into an Olympic movement, if I might call it that. Now you've got elitism and elite performance on the cards as well. And the argument for the purists is that they don't need the sympathy, because they are capable of performing just like any other athlete, able-bodied, so-called, like anyone else. What is your take? What's your view with that? I know you sit very central within that community.
My view is everybody's the same. We all have some weird behaviours. I'm well known for having one or two things I do. Can I run? Yes, I can run, but I have diabetes, so I have a disability. I know other people that you look at them that are sprinting, endurance, throwing, and then when you talk to them afterwards, they have a disability of some kind, and it may be just visual impairment, but they actually have it there. So if we treat everybody the same, we'll get on a lot better. I was 80 in 2012, and I met so many people that thought disability was a curse. We went out to show them that we're all the same. So yeah. That's the way I work. Look, I've worked with some able-bodied athletes that you say to them do this drill, and they never get it, and you get to the point of going, what's the matter? You want to punch their heads in at times. And then you say to them, there's a guy that I hold in high esteem, one of my great heroes, Mikael from Sweden. He plays golf off 11. He has Down syndrome, right? He does downhill skiing. As long as you take your time and you coach them correctly and you treat them as you would anybody else, then there's not a problem. Down syndrome, for instance, take a little bit of time to take stuff on board, but they can do it. I was once told by a very famous or very well-known English disability person, and put it in writing to me, I don't know why you're coaching Down syndrome, because you can't coach them. You can coach anybody, and it's about a relationship. I coached a young guy that had a learning disability, very, very bad learning disability, and it just took time, and he learned how to run. So just one step at a time. Listen, learn, and go on. That's what you should be doing.
Cheers for that, Malcolm. Obviously, that's a brilliant starting point for anybody getting into coaching or working with athletes with a disability. I've just heard your words there. Listen, learn, explore, experiment, because everyone is different, but more so athletes with a disability. They would not want to be pigeonholed into all the biomechanical stereotypes you're referring to there.
You know, the classic one is when you're out with someone in a wheelchair, people will talk to me and ask me questions about the person in the wheelchair as if they got no brains. The person I was with on one occasion, who I've coached for a long time, she actually has a degree in biology from Manchester University, and it's an MSc, a Master of Science. So she's got a brain, she's had an injury, She's in a wheelchair. It didn't affect her brain, and she can certainly talk. So just talk to the person. Yeah, sometimes you have to sit and ask them to repeat it. If I don't understand something, I ask them to repeat it and say, "Can you please say that again? I didn't understand. It's me." And gradually, you get to understand them. Over a period of time, you go, and people will say to me, "What did she say?" Well, another athlete I got, and I go, "Well, I said that." "How do you know?" I said, "Because I've coached and I listen. It's about listening to them."
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. I guess it is fairly fundamental, in any coach-athlete relationship, that there is that as a departure point, as a starting point. Listen to them. If it's going to be athlete-centered, then there's no way you're going to accomplish that if you're not listening to them. They hear themselves better. They understand better what's going on with themselves. They can only guide you. I think that coaches are only as good as they've got the ability to be guided by their athletes, i.e. in terms of feedback that is coming from the athletes to get them to do that. Yeah. So before we leave this general discussion here, what do you think about the development of, almost a distinction within a disability sport where there is a component of elitism? Now you've got elite athletes. They are professional athletes by all accounts, similar to their so-called able-bodied athletes.
It's nice to see they're recognised on the Paralympic/Olympic stage and World Championships. However, we've got to be very, very careful that we do not classify them based on winning medals. We have a major problem within the IPC that classification has not really got as professional as it should be. For instance, North Korea had some visually impaired basketball players that turned out not to be visually impaired. We've had a number of instances where you watch someone competing and you go, what's wrong with them? What's their disability? When I was at the European Championships, a French physiotherapist asked me to work with him to tell him or describe what their disability was. And we got to one stage, sprinter, and he said to me, "What's wrong with her?" And I went, "I don't know." There was no... One of the things under classification, it states very clearly, it's how they present themselves in competition. Right? So you can have a disability that, if you take, for instance, I don't know, MS, multiple sclerosis, 90% of them have remitting multiple sclerosis. So on a good day, they can run along as an able-bodied person because they have no problems internally within their system. Other days, they may have a problem, and you can see it, but it's a very, very difficult thing to do. So I do think sometimes national governing bodies go for the top end of disability, let's say the athlete who really have only a slight disability, to ensure the national governing body gets medals. And that's using disabled people to improve the national governing body's name within the sport. And I've seen it in the UK, I've seen it in other countries in Europe, and I've seen it worldwide. Interestingly, I can't think of seeing it anywhere in Africa. I've seen it in other locations already. Australia, Great Britain, France, Germany. So you look at them, and I look at a person when they're competing, and I normally can get their classification right. And you look at them, you go, 1 minute, that's not right. That person is in the wrong classification. But you also get the situation where other athletes about the other athlete, and that's within a team environment as well. I've seen that quite a few times. So I'm pleased they're actually getting to that standard. I'm pleased we are seeing greater abilities. For instance, on long jump, they can out jump the able-bodied world record.
Yeah. Now that's another question. That's a question, Malcolm. For I was going to follow through on that one.
Yes.
Because of all the artificial limbs that disabled athletes would need to have to supplement their movement intentions. Technology has come a long way.
Yes.
Now, like you point out, that sometimes from a position of disability, they are able to perform and outperform their able-bodied counterparts, if I may call them that. So the ethics with all that, is really another huge area for debate, is it not? What's your take on it yourself?
Oh yeah, we've just had he's a double amputee. So where you have a double amputee, your legs have to remain with your artificial legs on the same height or within a 5% of the height you were when you had limbs. Right, so he actually went from about 6'2" to 6'8", and he couldn't get classified with those legs. So there are rules. You do try to get over them. I have a problem with when I look at, for instance, endurance running within the Paralympics. Say we go from 400 upwards, where they're actually they've got they're amputees, lower limb amputees. We don't have any Africans actually competing in those events of any high standard because actually they can't find the money to buy legs because anything from £1,500 up to £5,000. If you look at wheelchair racing, the same situation happens. And I think it highlights it that we see a lot of our African colleagues in mainstream athletics, they're actually the leaders. They win marathons, they win 10,000, 5,000. But in disability, it's actually the ones who can afford the limbs wins. And that worries me. That actually does worry me a lot. And I would like to see some form of central fund. I was in Dubai and a young guy didn't have any tyres on his wheelchair. Right, so how is he going to be able to afford proper limbs? How can he afford a racing wheelchair at £10,000-15,000? He can't.
Yeah.
They start racing wheelchairs start from around about £2,000. That's an enormous amount of money for people in other countries. So there must be. We've got to look at that, and we've got to address those points. And there's, when you look at it, you can go, well, Usain Bolt got his world record with a little tweak of the limbs, the lower limbs, the prosthesis, the running blades, a little tweak on the blade. They can go sailing past him. They can actually go down to about 8 seconds. Oxford University did a test on it.
Yeah.
So they brought in regulation trying to get around it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do worry about that side of it. Are we moving too far forward, and are we having a rich man's sport and a poor man's sport? That's not fair. Sport should be for everybody, regardless of your ability to pay.
Yeah.
And hence one of the reasons why I work with a lot of overseas countries to try and help them improve their capabilities of actually entering elite athletics.
Yeah. And Malcolm, when we come back, we're going to have a look at an athlete that we have had a word with, and you know, huge thanks to the athlete himself and the coach,
Yeah.
and their whole setup, their whole management setup to be able to send us these videos so we can hear your thoughts. You already have touched on
Right.
some of the elements there, which is about the difficulties that this disability sport has got relative to those that can afford and those that cannot afford. It becomes, the cost factor becomes almost the deciding element for performance or lack of performance. That's one part I like to address. The other part I like to address is one of classification, which seems to shift, talking to experts like you, seems to shift from competition to competition, and depending on other factors, including number of entries. So when we come back, I like you to give us your thoughts on these athletes here.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? What does classification? Where does that athlete fit in? From what the little clip you've seen there, what's their classification? And in your own experience,
Right.
how do you go?
He would be listed as a single arm amputee, single limbs at the upper arm, and it's, I believe, F40, F44, but I will confirm with you later on that one. He looks like an athlete, right? That's the most important thing. I would suspect he has a problem on balance because he has one arm which is okay, and he's got a left arm which is either an amputation or he's been born with it. Right, so we've got to balance that side up. We need to balance. We've got to get the person balanced. You may have seen at various competitions long jumpers who have like a huge, great big lump of wood stuck on the end of their amputation, and I don't understand it. if he's got something that is actually up to make himself the same size as his left arm like his right arm, that's perfect, right? So and
Yeah.
get him to be happy with the weight. It's there's no need to have it very heavy. You just need to get some form of idea. So he said, yeah, that's about the same weight as my other arm. So that's what he needs, and he needs to learn to be able to use it when he's running. Right. So that's the most important. And then it's very simple to actually coach him, because balance exercises, getting him standing on one leg. So he stands on his right leg, his arms out wide, closes his eyes, and he walks down a runway, and he's got to learn to walk down straight down the middle, and he's got to learn to walk backwards. Right? It's amazing how many youngsters are not able to stand on one leg. It takes practice if they haven't done it. I had a 6'4", 6'5" Olympic discus thrower. When he came to me, and when he arrived, because he's an overseas athlete, I said to him, stand on one leg, and he fell over. He couldn't do it. Nobody's ever said to him in the past. So he didn't know how to balance. You've got to learn to balance. Close your eyes, walk down, walk backwards, and just learn how to do it. That will help him, right? And then he's got to get his arm moved. He's got to get used to his new prosthetic arm, which will go onto his left arm, and will be the same length when he puts his hands out like that. They're the same size. You know, when I see a lump of wood which is about 3 foot long up there, they can't do that, and it actually gets in the way, right? So you've got to have something that actually helps balance out his running up and down movement, so he can pull back, right? And and that extra little bit of weight on that left arm will help him to pull back in a better fashion. And then it's really about coaching the guy. I actually looked at the men's world record for triple jump for a single arm amputee, and that young man is very close to it. Very, very close. So it's not an event that's actually
let's have a look at what you're talking about here. You know, for the issues of balance, and triple jump has got its own challenges, you know, that it puts on, you know, able-bodied athletes. Now you can imagine what that does to you know, to an athlete like him. Let me see if I can pull up another clip here for us to have a look at. Right on. Let's get you out of there. So again, now I need to get him back here. Just hang on. So I apologize for that. Let me see if I can get him from there. Okay, and bring my whole screen in. Right. Okay, here we go. That should do it.
All I've got, Stan, is your screen. No videos.
No videos come through?
No, all I've got is your screen.
Ah, okay. Dummy. Let's see this. Remove that. Let's remove that. Okay, I'll get back to that one. And oh, that's what I should have done. Okay. Anyway, whilst I'm still looking for that video, we'll have a chat on there. What is your view on strength and conditioning? You know, for an athlete such as that, you know, such as KC. KC, that's the name of the athlete that's in the video there.
Right. He has to have a. He can undertake a strength and conditioning program, right? Because he was an able-bodied, in as much as a mainstream athlete with a disability, which is either an amputation or he was born with an arm like that. So he has an amputation, say, on that side, on his left-hand side. So there's no reason why he can't do any strength and conditioning. He needs to start slowly. He needs to look at what weights program he's going to do to give him upper body strength and also to give him power within his legs. So some plyometrics, jumping on boxes, certainly some squats with jumps, but keep it light just so that he can actually learn and he can help develop his ability to gain height through jumping. So he needs to work on his legs. His core is important because he's upright. So certainly looking at doing some exercises, crunches, and at the same time look at doing some lightweight flies. He doesn't have to have great big muscles. He's got to have toned muscles, right? So he's got to look at certainly, I would say, jumping up on boxes, doing some light squats with coming up and doing, when he gets up, he jumps up on the top. Every time he does anything with weights, where he's actually using his legs for weights, he's got to do some box jumpings afterwards. So he does, say, 3 times 5 of his weight, and again, not his max, but coming down to 75% of his max. And then when he's done those, say he does 3, he does 5. Once he's done his 5, he's going to have a break, but he's going to do some jumping. So he comes, puts the bar down, goes to a box and jumps onto a box. And it's only got to be, say, 6 inches tall, just so he gets the ability to get spring into his legs. So anything he's doing like that, obviously some stuff that you would do with sprinters, but that's really it. I wouldn't, as long as he's got a nice program which suits him and gives him the ability to do what he's doing. I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so I actually do a lot of programs to people, and you know, everybody, again, as I said, everybody's different. So what is his access to equipment? You know, a lot of people say, oh, I can't get into a gym. Well, that's all right. Get a sack of something that's a bit of weight, and he can do his squats, but he can come up with that on his back, and he can jump up, hold on to the bag. He's got, I don't know, 20 kilos on his back, jump, come up. He's going to work, do more repetitions if you've only got very light weights. So, you know, we have to adapt depending on what our...
Okay, Mark, I've got a little video on SNC. Let's have a look and let me hear what you think.
Right. Right. Well, the thing I noticed, the bar's bent, but also he's lopsided. He's got to learn to keep his body straight. Right. So when he's lifting, the right arm is more powerful, so he's got to keep his arms straight, come up and keep up. Right. So whatever you do, you've got to keep your arms level. If you're like that, right, so your one's like that, you're going to find this arm is getting no real workout. So your right hand is doing the workout. So you're going to build up on one side, and that's going to create an imbalance in your body. Whatever you do with your left arm, you do with your right arm, and vice versa. When you're doing leg exercises, whatever you do with your left, you do with your right. And it's up to the coach to actually work with him so that he understands that what he's got to do. There has to be a program that actually addresses each part of his body, and it's got to be equalized. So he doesn't want a huge, great big upper body and little legs. He's got to have a reasonable sized legs, because remember, your ankles start the support process. He's going to do a lot of work on his ankles as a triple jumper. He's going to have his calves and everything else, and his knees. So you need to build up the leg muscles, but they must be built up in balance. They really have got to be equal. So if you do left hand curls, you do right hand ones. And if the coach needs problems or anything, I'm always available to help if he needs help. All right.
Yeah.
And that's
well, cheers for that,
one
Malcolm.
of the things.
And yeah, sorry, you're going to say something.
Well, I say we've all got knowledge, and it's about imparting that knowledge to help other people. Right? Because I learned my knowledge from someone else. I learn off of everybody, right? So Gerd Kantner, when I was over in Estonia at a competition with some athletes, he made one comment to me about discus. One of the best ever tips I ever got. You know, so you learn all the time. So I'm a great believer. If we can help each other, then we work in partnership, and I'm always willing to help.
Well done, Malcolm, and cheers and thanks for that offer. You know, I'm sure the athlete and the coach, you know, they are watching. They would appreciate your comments and your views there. Now, before we close off for tonight, let me just find out what your disability and the Paralympic agenda is looking like now, post the second lockdown, moving forward. What are your plans? What's happening?
At the moment, I'm talking to some overseas countries that they want me to help them. So almost certainly I am still working with some overseas athletes. I've got 2 in the UK that I'm working with. And I'm working with some coaches, and I'm going down to other parts of the country to actually work with some coaches, because they've got disabled athletes that are looking for support. They want some. It's about putting our heads together and coming up with different solutions to a problem.
Yeah,
and that's one of the key things, is actually with athletes with disability, is actually doing that, is actually looking and going, what about if we try this? How do you feel about it? What do you reckon? And finding out, we often miss, you know, I see in the pros, I see coaches in the net, standing inside the net to coach. You can't see. You've got to go away. You've got to be away from the athlete and look at it remote from the athlete and see what they're doing. When you're looking at drills, if you're too close up, you can't see what they're doing. If you're a little bit away, and by working with other coaches, we can move away, we can sit and talk and say, right, say to the athlete, have you tried this? Can we try this, try that?
Yeah.
You know, I'm well known for coaching dwarfs, plus many other, you know, I've coached every single disability. I think there is a going. But with dwarfs, they have trouble getting across the circle. So we experiment on how they get them across the circle. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm working with some coaches overseas, and yeah, we're getting there. I don't know whether I'll be going to Tokyo. I actually said Tokyo would be my last Paralympics or Olympics, but I've got a shot putter who said, "Oh, you're going to stay with me for the Commonwealth, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, all right, I will do." So yeah, and you've actually seen the big guy I've got. So there's a number of things in there. I'm beginning to do a bit more club coaching, but I've got a lot of friends in overseas, especially within Africa, and they're sort of saying to me, "Can I help?" So yes, I can help, and I will quite easy. I did some stuff with a Jamaican athlete, where they were sending me videos and I was giving an overview on it, and then we would talk with the coaches. So I'm going to do more of that if I can, to try and help other nations that haven't got the coaching background.
Well, on that note, Malcolm, ever so grateful for you and your time, and of course your generous, sharing your knowledge so generous, and your experiences so generously on the show, and especially for your specific suggestions there for athlete KC, who we had videos sent over and we were looking at here. I'm sure the appreciation is felt strongly wherever he is and his team. What's left for me now is to say, Malcolm, you have a good one. Thanks for coming on the show, and we shall be bringing you back another time, possibly near the Olympics, the Paralympics, or post the Paralympics. No, near the Paralympics. So we see what you're up to with your athletes. So thanks very much for tonight, Malcolm.
Okay, that's lovely. Thanks for inviting me.
You are a superstar. Let's do this way.
Thank you, Stan. Right, lovely.